Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome back to another Wellness Wednesday. This glare on my glasses. I'm trying to think if I should keep my glasses on, take my glasses off. I don't know. I can see right now. Oh, hey, Mom. Hey. How you doing? Um, we're just here waiting. So today we have, I'll let her definitely, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just like all over the place this evening. Uh, they let her introduce herself, but she is going to be talking to us today about, her name is Dominique. She's going to be talking to us today about anxiety during this whole quarantine, and also our like marriages and all that stuff. And it looks like she is here. Hold on. Y'all know I just learned how to do this last week. Oh. Hey,
Hey, how
how's
you
it going?
doing?
I'm good. Um, so I tried to give everybody a little just kind of tidbit what we're going to be talking about today. So thank you for agreeing to do this
Of
with me today.
course.
And I definitely think it's going to be a great conversation. I swear I say that every time I talk to somebody, whether it's podcast. I just like, this is gonna be a great time. I think it's the only thing about myself, and it always makes.
And the information is great. I think all the information that you've been sharing is great. So all of them are good conversations.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and just like got started.
Well, I'm a mental health therapist. I am a transformation strategist and entrepreneur. I like to specialize in working with women and couples who are navigating through, specific transitions such as, the pandemic, which is new and that's here.
Yeah.
But infidelity, depression, anxiety, and things like that. I've always wanted to be a therapist, so I got started like in middle school, if that's a thing. But it's been, the last few years where I wanted to kind of transition into also doing entrepreneurship. I do love therapy and I do still do that, but just kind of venturing out to see if I can, snatch up some of the other people that are struggling that may not necessarily need therapy, but just
Yeah.
kind of need help getting from one phase of their lives to the next. Because sometimes that in between space can be heartbreaking for some, can be a very vulnerable space for some, and they don't really necessarily always have a way to reach out or know where to go. And so I like to catch them in that spot to kind of help them just get to a better space personally, professionally, whatever it is that they need.
Yeah, that's good. My previous job, I actually one day was just trying to figure out like what I wanted to do, what was going to happen next. Before like maybe like a year before I actually quit, but I reached out to my EPA and I stand by EPA. Is it
Yes.
EAP?
CPA, EAP,
EAP. There you go. I'm like, wait,
EAP.
I'm like, the EPA is the government. Like, that's not what the EAP, so Employee Assistance Program. I stand by that because I think that people don't realize the things that they had, but that's exactly what I had was a coach who kind of through the next steps of my out, and so she helped me like put together what it is I wanted to do. But it was literally, it's free, y'all. It was literally a weekly call that I had with her, just like walk through the steps. And I to this day, I'm so grateful that that was literally the first step that I took. Now I go to actual therapy, but it still was that transition of, okay, what do I need? What do I need to do at my job? And she got me all the way together. She really did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Girl, I
So
preach therapy to everybody I can.
yeah, the thing about it is that I think sometimes, we generally reach out to our friends, and your friends can have a lot of wisdom because I'm very wise, right? Um, but sometimes you need it under some boundaries and some constraints, right? Because
Yes,
they their opinion, but when you do that, I think it helps people because sometimes we just have a lot going on in our head, and
we
you
do.
just need to be able to just like take that one thing and say, okay, I heard you say this, but maybe this means something else. So Have
That's it.
you ventured into like becoming a therapist and having to have clients? So one of the things that I like to ask my guests is about their self-doubt journey. How has self up in your journey?
With imposter syndrome, definitely. Just having doubts about the accomplishments that I've had and just internalizing certain things. And I think that this is true for a lot of people, but definitely, for me and my own self-doubt journey is that we grow up with certain messages and we grow up with certain ways of being, or, our family's beliefs and our family's values are kind of imprinted on us because that's just what we do.
Yeah,
And we take that into adulthood thinking that this is the only way to be, and then we enter into this big world where it's like, no, I can create the rules in my life, and I can create, and structure what I want my life to be. But getting to that space requires a lot of unlearning certain
yeah,
things that we had to learn in the beginning, and not necessarily taking all the way away from the values, but just knowing how this particular value or this particular belief can apply to the life in the way that I want to live it.
yeah,
And being okay and making peace with that to where I don't feel like I'm disappointing people. Because that was one of the things that showed up the most in that imposter phase is I don't want to disappoint the people that have molded me and
yeah,
that have shaped me, but I still have these dreams and these accomplishments that are huge and that they're scary and they make me fearful, but I still want to accomplish them. So it was a lot of that back and forth of, do I really do this? Is it too soon? Do I really know what I'm talking about? Why would
yeah.
people pay me to do this? And, and so it was a hard journey, and it still shows up like imposter syndrome and self-doubt. Like that stuff doesn't necessarily go anywhere. You just learn better ways to manage it and better ways to be resilient towards it, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I don't think it goes anywhere. It shows up differently. It shows up depending on, we talked about this before, like depending on level up, it comes up a different type of way.
Mm-hmm.
You, may come up through you, it may come through somebody else. Somebody said imposter syndrome is a Richard, but I know that that means a dick.
Yes.
Syndrome is terrible because it will stop you every single time. Just the thought of thinking that nobody will believe you, right? Or nobody
Right.
think that you know what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, we're all just like figuring it all out. So,
That's it. We're big kids trying to
yeah,
figure out life.
exactly. So, what have you learned about yourself doing your like self doubt journey you didn't know about yourself before?
Um, that my thoughts and my feelings are not always accurate because sometimes we think if we feel a certain way about something, or there's a thought that pops up, and that must mean something and I must be doing something wrong. But just knowing that they aren't always accurate, they're going to try to rationalize themselves with each other as far as making me feel better. So if I'm
Yeah,
already feeling anxious, or if I'm already feeling like I can't accomplish this, then my thoughts and my feelings are going to match up to make me feel okay. And just knowing that I can go in and I can challenge those thoughts and I can try to shift them and adjust them to not necessarily be what I want them to be, because sometimes it's a good thing for them to come up and for you to question it and check the evidence and things like that. But just knowing that I can do that process and I don't have to automatically believe everything that comes up in my mind, because sometimes it's just not accurate. It's irrational, and I have to figure out a way to get it from the irrational to the rational.
that's good. So, how do you feel like that you because this is going to go into like our next question, but for my own personal knowledge and probably anybody else who struggles with the same, how do you like take yourself through that process to like not let yourself get away with your thoughts? You know what I mean? Because we end up taking things that we think, and we just it it will just magnify whatever the situation is, and it could make you do something you really want to do, move too fast, move too slow, you know.
Mm-hmm.
No, you miss, like there's so many. It doesn't always have to be a like, oh, something kind of got screwed up because you went through your thoughts. You could have just thought that, oh, this is a great opportunity, and because you
Right.
didn't you end up being like, dang, I probably shouldn't have done that. So what's that kind of take to like get yourself to be like yes or no?
Okay. I ask myself the questions. I ask myself, is this thought based on facts or is it based on feeling? if my best friend was in this situation, what would I tell her? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we are too close to the situation, and we go through all the different scenarios, and we making a plan A, we making a plan B, we making a plan C. But if our friend would come to us with the same issue, we could immediately help them with
Yeah.
that, and we can immediately help them get to a place where they feel more comfortable to make that decision. So what would my best friend, or what would I say to my best friend if they were dealing with the same thing?
That was good.
How likely is it that this fear or this thought or this feeling is going to come true? Is it something that can actually happen, or is it just something that I'm dreaming up in my head,
Yeah.
that may not be something that may ever come to fruition? What's the most likely thing that will happen? So looking at your options, looking at the reality of the situation, what will actually happen if I did this thing, or what won't happen if
Yeah.
I decide to do this thing? And if my worst fear comes true, and if what I feel like may possibly happen, will actually come to fruition, then will that outcome still matter in a week? Like, if the worst happened, will this
Yeah.
be something that I'm thinking about in a year? Will it be something that I'm thinking about in 2 years? I think about the saying that some people say, if people are, being anxious or doubting themselves, will somebody die if I
Yeah.
make this decision?
Right.
Will my family, disappear if I make this decision? Because that's the worst case
Yeah.
scenario. But if that's not the case, and I'm going to be completely okay, bills still going to be paid, family's still going to be good. It's just me making a decision. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Then I can do it. So it's going down that question, and literally talking to yourself and saying, hey,
Yeah.
okay, let's figure it out. Let's challenge it. Let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the facts. And then at the end of that, if you feel comfortable with what you've come up with, then you go for it. Or if you don't, then that's your decision and you don't need to do it.
Yeah, that's good. I think that a lot of times we just stop at the thoughts and we don't like process them all the way out. And so and most of the time, most decisions that on a regular basis, the things that we afraid of, the worst case scenario is not death, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's not like 90% of the time, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, somebody says no, or you don't get the job,
Mm-hmm.
or they break up with you, or whatever. It's just, it may be changing, your life, but it's definitely not anything that would cause, harm to yourself or
Or
anybody
severe
else.
disruption. Right.
Yeah. So, I did a very good job of like, I was trying to avoid, for whatever reason, the whole conversation about the quarantine and being, COVID and stuff. Some of it is because I suffer from anxiety, and just talking about stuff just makes me more anxious. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know what week we're in. I think 9, 8, something. We've been here
Lost
for,
count. I've lost
yeah.
count. I'm just here.
We're still here, right? And so one of the things that I've been noticing as I've been talking to a lot of people, whether it be people in my small group or my friends, my family, just you're hearing other people's stories and what they're talking about throughout the just on on social media, whatever have you, how anxiety is just showing up in people who never even thought they had anxiety. And for people who do have it, it has heightened to like no tomorrow. Like, it is literally at the point where we are having these, and I've said it before, I've had like 2 panic attacks within the first like 3 weeks of the whole situation, because in this season, the worst case scenario is death. And so
Right.
think about that, you be like, do I have a will? Do I, like, there was so
Right.
many
Right.
to think about before this, and I was just like, oh my God, my brain. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about that, about the people who have it, the people like just where we are right now. Like, I think that and for me, I'm very vocal about it. There's some people who internalize the anxiety. For years, I internalized my anxiety. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely did today. But then it showed up physically for me, and I had Bell's palsy 3 times. And so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna just stop right now, because it's not working out for me. Um, I like, nope, not gonna do it. So I really want to talk about like anxiety during this time, and address and cope with it. Because like, I know you're in Florida, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think y'all on quarantine no more. Y'all can go wherever y'all want, right? I mean,
They're
even if
they're
you choose,
opening up in phases. But people do what they want. As soon as the first phase opened, I think it was only like restaurants and other little spots. Everybody was out. So they went from being at home, and then phase one, they was like, as soon as phase one hit, I'm done. Like, I'm out. Y'all
Yeah.
ain't keeping me at home no more. We're done. So Florida, we do what we want down here, apparently.
So for us, I'm in Maryland, right? And so they literally just opened every county around me, except for my county, because our county that was heavy hit. So even
Mm-hmm.
people that are like 20 minutes away from you, driving distance, who are you
Right.
okay to like go into phase one, but my county and another county, the two highest counties, they are still on a stay at home order. And then I'm like 10 minutes away from DC. DC is still at the same thing. You're literally in a space where it's like, are we gonna get out of this? Like what happening? So when you hear these things kind of happening, it's a lot, right? So
Mhm.
I want to really just try to address how it shows up, what it may look like for everybody, because it shows up differently in different people and it looks differently, and then how we can cope with it during this time for as long as I guess is why we in here.
As long as it's here. As long as it's here. Um, so anxiety just in general is, you have the mental reaction to it and you have the physical reaction to it. And it's basically how you and your body are receiving threats. And it's real future oriented. So as soon as something happens, people who suffer from anxiety immediately think about, okay, I have to get prepared for the next day. I got to get prepared for the next week and the next year and the next 5 years. And then that just kind of expands, because that's an overwhelming feeling to have to get everything together today for the next 5 years. And so you
Yes.
experience that, that it's like an uncontrollable worry that you can't necessarily calm down. And so that's why people who do suffer from anxiety will tell people, don't tell me to calm down, because it's not going to help. And I'm still not going to calm down. It does not help. It can lead to excessive nervousness. So that's another symptom of it, where you just kind of have this pit in the middle of your stomach and it
Hmm.
does not go away, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it affects everything. It can make you have panic attacks. And so you experience that, and that's where it gets to the height of it, where your body literally can't contain all the
Yeah.
anxiety that's happening, and it's starting to literally have the physical reactions to it. It can cause an upset stomach, muscle tension, is the avoidance of fear, and the trying to plan for all the steps and all the scenarios when there is no way possible we can plan for all of that. And then when that thing happens, or when anything close to that thing happens, then the fear just kind of immediately increases and expands. The increased heart rate is one of the physical symptoms. Sometimes, for some people, their hands get sweaty, their heart may palpitate and start getting really, really fast. They may feel dizzy, they may pass out or feel close to passing out. Poor concentration, so all types of things that anxiety can present as in different people, and people will know it once it comes up, because it's just this overwhelming tightness and stress that you
Mm.
feel in your body, and your heart is racing, and you just kind of are all over the place. Is one of the things that I get from a lot of people. I just feel like I'm all over the place. So that's what, as far as the symptoms, that's how that goes, and what that looks like. And so it's just this heightened level of tension in their bodies. And for people who may have never experienced it
Yeah.
and are now starting to go through with it, they may just know that they're heightened and know that they're super sensitive to
Yeah.
everything that's around them, and they're hyper vigilant to everything that's around them, and they may be trying all the stuff, they may be doing everything that they may have normally have done in the smaller anxiety producing situations, and that may not be working for them, and so that sends them into an overdrive. And if for people who have never experienced any kind of mental illness or mental disorder or whatever, they automatically assume the worst, because that's what anxiety does. It automatically goes to the absolutely worst possible outcome. And they think they're suffering from, maybe bipolar or depression or whatever it is. And it just kind of sends them into a tizzy. And it's difficult for them, especially if they've never experienced it. They've never maybe read up on it, learned about it. And so they start to operate from this tense place, that really takes a toll on relationships. It really takes a toll on friendships. It takes a toll on their productivity at work. It can really be a destructive force
Yeah.
if, one, you've never dealt with it, and two, you haven't been able to get the help that you need for it.
Yeah. So how do you think that? So I definitely know that, you know, for myself, I need therapy for somebody to kind of like walk me through those steps. You know, it was some I knew it before, but once this happened, it was just like, okay, scratch me trying to figure out how to like overcome. I need you to help me now. Like I right
Hmm.
in this moment, this is how I feel. I don't want to go outside. I don't
Right.
want nobody's ear but my own. You know, it was some steps that I definitely had to take for myself. Like, you know, turn the TV off. I had, you know, not look at every text message that came through because
Yeah.
I want, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? Nope, I don't. Good.
Couldn't
I'm
do it.
protecting for me, I had to like protect my space and
Hmm.
feel uncomfortable about saying no. You know,
Yeah.
my friend calls me the queen of no anyway. So I was like, oh, yes, you right now. That's where you about to get all of them right now. So what are some ways that you would suggest that people, so for those people who are not in therapy, right? So there's people out there who know they have anxiety, who know that they suffer from things, but they just, you know, they don't think they need a therapist. Because for some people, when they think of going to therapy, they immediately think of medication, and that's completely
Hmm.
different. That is not
100%.
a psychiatrist versus a psychologist. There's a medical portion and there's a therapy. Like it's two different things. So can you explain
Completely.
quickly for those people for you know to know that there's a difference between medication and like talking it out?
Definitely. So with therapy doesn't, and even with the medication, I think a lot of people automatically assume that if I have to call a therapist, then that means I'm in crisis. And if I don't feel like I'm in crisis, then I shouldn't have to go. But therapy is really to help you manage the things that you are currently struggling with. It doesn't mean that you have had a lifetime struggle or a lifetime worry. It can just be in this particular moment in time in my life, I can't deal with what's happening and I need somebody to help unravel all
Yeah,
those things. So I saw a meme somewhere on social media, Instagram, where there was a therapist sitting in a chair and there was this big ball of yarn for the client, and the therapist just kind of helps to unravel that
mm,
piece of yarn and those thoughts and those feelings, and to help you first understand it and
yeah,
then help you learn how to manage it. So it doesn't have to be crisis. We can't prescribe medication if it gets serious enough to where it affects you at home, if it's affecting you at work and it's affecting you at school to where you can't function. Because some
yeah,
people can function and know that they have anxiety, and then others cannot. Like they have to go home, they have to call out. When it gets to the more severe levels, then that's where a therapist could refer you to a psychiatrist
yeah,
to get the medication that will help you first get stabilized. Because once we can stabilize you, then we can help you learn all the skills that you need to help you manage it better.
yeah.
But initially, therapy is just to help you unravel all the stuff that you're feeling so that you can understand it. Because sometimes we don't have the vocabulary to identify the things that are happening. And once we can identify it and have the vocabulary, then it doesn't seem like this big overwhelming thing that's happening to you. You know what it is and you know what it looks like.
Yeah, that's so good. I like that because for you know, like a lot of people, especially in our community, the men
Mm-hmm.
get therapy. You like, oh, some you know, crazy. You going to they going, you know, 5150 all the time. Like, no, you know, somebody you don't know who isn't judging you, who doesn't know all your business. That you're just saying, hey, right now, this is what I'm kind of need this. And I can imagine during this time, you all have, you know, mental health therapists, and the mental health system has probably accelerated because, like I said, there's people who know they have it, like me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Got other people who's like, I ain't really sure what's going on, but
Right.
I'm just not feeling right. Let me go talk to somebody. So thank you for y'all, you know, being open because I'm just telling you, I don't know. I don't know what I was like. No, I'm not available. So I'm definitely grateful for that. So when you mentioned something about, you know, just like with the anxiety, with the quarantine, one of the things that I've also noticed is that my anxiety affects my household. It affects my family. It affects act with my kids. It affects how I interact with my husband. And you know, he already knew I had anxiety, and but he never like saw it right, and
I got it.
then he was like, You all right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you need, and I was just like, it was like a really, really bad day. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so I think it's very important that we have a lot of things going on, right? And when you are quarantined in a household with your family 24/7 on a
Yes.
regular basis, I'm not saying it's all bad, but it also ain't all good,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it just could be just like we all need our space. We all need our personal space. We all need.
Definitely.
So I really wanted to touch on like how relationships are being marriages and relationships are being affected during this time, because it's not just your spouse, it's your partner, it's your boyfriend, your
Hmm.
even parent and child, because though
Yes.
you used to your kids being in school and not on your food. You know what I'm saying?
Right. All day.
Like
All day.
all day, right? And your kids are probably used to you not having that much access to you. You know what I'm saying? You being right
Mm-hmm.
over there. Is you doing your work or not? Like, what are we doing right now? So,
Let me know. Don't know how to teach.
yeah, right, right. So, in regards to relationships, I want to kind of like break it down, like marriages and intimate relationships, and then like parents and their kids, like how you know how they're being affected during this time.
For relationships and marriages, one of the things that I've seen so far is that there's been a lot of conflict because there's been changes in the relationship roles.
Mm,
So, with some people having lost their jobs, with the reduction in work hours, with people who don't normally work from home are now having to figure out what that world looks like.
yeah.
There are situations where one partner suddenly becomes the primary caregiver, while
Wow.
the other one is now the sole breadwinner.
Yeah.
And and just be, especially if it's a shift from the man being the breadwinner to the woman, that can be a very hard reality for the men more so, but the family in general to kind of wrap their minds around, because
Yeah.
it's just for men, like that's for most men, that's where they get their identity, being able to take care of home, being able to take care of their families. And
Right.
now having had to switch roles completely, then that's causing a whole lot of conflict in relationships, because as individuals during this process, we are struggling with sleep disturbances. So we're I'm forgetting the days, everybody's forgetting the days. So my sleep cycle, my wake cycle, all of that is off. So we're all having these sleep disturbances. We're all engaging in avoidance behaviors and not necessarily coping mechanisms. So trying to avoid people, trying not to talk, trying not to get frustrated. And then as soon as somebody talks to us, we,
Let's back that up. What is avoiding
okay.
behavior? What is that? Because I need to know if that's what.
So that's where you've been in the house for 20 days, and everybody has trying to figure out life, trying to be around each other because they've been working most of the time. And now you see people starting to, one spouse is in the bedroom, the other spouse is in the spare room. And so we're avoiding talking, we're avoiding having any kind of conversations other than the surface level conversations. And so
Yeah.
we start avoiding the conflict, the big elephant in the room that we may be experiencing, and now we're just not going to do any of it because I would rather not do it than to have to sit down and argue with you and then still be with you for the next 20 more days.
Side is still closed.
Yes, yes, way too close,
Yeah.
way too close. So I'm seeing a lot of that. And just depression is coming up, anxiety is coming up. So as individuals, we're experiencing all these things. And if we are already frustrated with ourselves because we don't know what's going on, then that brings just tension and conflict in the relationship. And so people are nagging just to be nagging, and
Yeah.
arguing just to be arguing. And they're turning little small arguments into bigger ones because of all this frustration, and sleep is off, depression, anxiety, all that stuff is coming up. And so just that change in the relationship roles for couples is one of the things that I'm seeing a whole lot more often. Issues with the couple's sex life, because the kids are home all the time. There is no longer that that period where they're at school and
Right.
that structured life that we're used to them having. Things are more stressful at home. So because we have that difficulty in concentrating because things are just crazy, it's hard for us to make decisions, and it's hard
Yeah.
for us to really spend quality time with each other because all that's starting to get blended in. If we're home all day, then of course all of that won't be quality. And so it's hard if you're around somebody all day to rationally pinpoint what's quality and what's just you sitting next to me while we're watching TV.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
that those lines are kind of getting blurred. And so when it comes to couples, actually trying to have that intimate time together and trying to have sex and still keep that part of their lives alive, there's that pressure to make it a satisfying experience, because I need something at this point. And if we're together and we're trying to figure this thing out as a unit, and sex is something that's important to us as a couple,
Yeah.
then we bring all that pressure into the bedroom, which will naturally, if you go into the bedroom with all that pressure and you go into the bedroom with all those thoughts and feelings and emotions, it's not going to be a satisfactory experience. It's not going to be something that you want to do. You won't even have the desire to do it.
Yeah.
So that's bringing up issues with that.
Yeah, that's but those are really good. When you say religious thing, that kind of hit me because I know that we do a different thing. So my husband is home, but his job, he cannot telework, so he's literally just home, right? Like
Right.
he's not working from home; he's just here, and I'm fine with it because the other part is that I know that he's been here. He's worked for a very long time. Being able to have break is like the longest break he's ever had in his working. And so, but I find myself certain days like, okay, you be here and I'll be here, and then it'll be like, he'll say, I ain't seen you all day. And I'm like, we all in the same house. We all in the same space. How you not see me? But I think it's like that. I feel like when you were apart and then you like prior to this, right? Like making intentional moments and intentional time together, it's more difficult to do that now, right? Because you're trying to make sure that you
Right.
cultivate not only marriage, but also your relationship with your kids, right? Because now you're here with your kids
Right.
over an extended period of time, and you all are here at the same time. And so, like for us, we decided to do something with the kids where we watching like Marvel movies or whatever, and so then they're like, well, can't we watch it? But then it's like, okay, how do we also give mommy and daddy time? But then then you
Right.
feel like, okay, well, kids and let's do this. And then you feel like you just, I got nothing left. And then we got to do this again tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Tomorrow.
And so, are there any things? Do you have any advice for all of us? Because we all are going through this at this moment. Whether, like I said, it's not all bad and it's not all good, right? So you have
Right.
highs and lows. You may go
Right.
good for a week or so, and then that one day you just like
I'm
just
done.
another day. For marriages to try to like be more intentional about it so that we don't eventually, because what I would hate to happen is that you get it to the end of this and
Mm-hmm.
like then you need to be your spouse, right? And it's the
Right.
opposite as opposed to you,
Right.
because now you just spent all this time. I seen you for 90 days straight. We are good. Okay.
I'm good for
But
the
you
next
don't
night.
want to lose, right? So while we're in the house, how can we be intentional about bringing some of that back, some of
I think it's just learning how to be flexible and be creative, and adjust our mindsets that we have now to what does our normal look like now, because our normal before, it was we go to work, we come back home, we may have family time, and then we have couple time, and then we go to bed. But
right?
that has to look differently. So as a couple, you have to sit down and like plan that structure. Like, look, we're here all day, what does quality time look like? And be willing and ready to have those conversations and not take it personally if a person has to go in separate rooms. So it only becomes an avoidance behavior or a conflict behavior if you're going in separate rooms to avoid talking
Mm,
because you're upset with that person,
uh,
or because you don't want to talk about certain things. But if you know as a person that you just need some time to yourself, then that is 100% completely healthy. And
yeah.
you need to be able to do that and have those conversations with your spouse so that they don't think that it's avoidance and you don't want to talk. It's just, I just need to not be anything to anybody right now. And then I'm going to come back out and then I'm good. So I think being able to have those honest conversations and know that if we're splitting up or if we're taking time apart from each other in the house, then it doesn't mean that anything's bad. This is just what I need. And if there are kids around, then have a conversation to plan that around the kids. Like, at this time, I'll go in the room, and then can you handle the kids during that period? And so I can have my space, and then kind of flip flop on that to be able to do the things that you need to do and still have the quality time and not create unintentional conflict because those conversations are not happening, because that's the whole point.
That's good. So this is where communication is very, very important at this time.
Very.
The person isn't getting, uncomfortable with and trying to figure out like what's wrong with you, because that's what happened. Like we both in here. I ain't do nothing,
Right. Right.
And even for me, like I know for a period of time, because he would be up later at night, I'd be like, because I do record podcasts in the morning, I'm like, I'm tired. And so I would go to the basement and I'd be like, I'm just leaving the basement. And like after like the third day, he was like, why you keep going to the basement? I was like, because I actually like I'm sleeping down there because then I started having insomnia. And so it was like, I'm tired. Like I really just want to go to bed. It has nothing to do with you, but I just need to fall asleep and like stay asleep throughout the entire night. And so I think once it was like, okay, but like what you're saying is that if you don't have the conversation, then here's where assumptions start to go and
exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly, because we already have those perceptions of how life used to be. And so if this is all I'm thinking about as far as how life used to be, it used to be that if you went in a separate, so if that's no longer the case, then we need to create a different understanding and a different definition for what that looks like. So that I know that when you go and do this thing, that you really need time, and I can be supportive. I can support you in that space and say, okay, I see you're in the room, let me handle the kids. And then when you come back out, I know that you're good and you're ready. And then I can go and take my time. And it doesn't create the unnecessary in the house.
Right, right. So, okay. So one of the other things that a lot of people, I saw people down there saying, was talking about the kids and being in the house with children. When you're in the house with different age kids, you get different emotions, right? From the little ones all the time to the older ones who are going through their own emotional thing, because
Right.
what is like I think sometimes we forget that they're people too, even though
Right.
we know that they are. They're little people, right?
They're little people.
But I think sometimes we don't necessarily realize that they could have the same emotions that we do. So how do we navigate? We navigate marriages. How do we navigate this parenting relationship when maybe the kids are at that age where they're not being open about how they feel, or or they are. Like what things do you think we could do with that?
I think with kids, it's important to keep structure. So like for my kid's older, so it's a little bit different. So I'll get to the younger ones, but I know for my kid, he's 14, he's a teenager. And so because he is at home a lot more and he's out of school, he had automatically assumed that because I'm home and the Xbox is here, then that's all I can do all day. And I'm like, nope, that's not how this works. And so I still have him every day get up at the time that he would get up for school. And he gets up and he eats breakfast and he takes a shower. And I have him a dedicated space to go and do his work. And even in the in between, like I'll have him do a couple of chores just to flesh out his day. And then there's still a designated time from when you can play your Xbox. There's a designated time for you to do the other stuff. And then there is still a bedtime. So keeping it as close to structure as you can. And for the little kids, I would say that it's easier, but I haven't raised a kid during a pandemic, so excuse me. But there is, because kids are, you can keep them busy with coloring because they have times in school where they're coloring. So figure out if you can keep it as close to what they would normally do in school as possible, because they have centers and they have stations and they have times where they're on the computer. And so creating that structure for them will help create the structure for you so that you can kind of flesh out your own day. And also so that you don't feel like because your kids are home that you have to automatically be mom to them all day. Like there's still a structure. Let's keep the structure. Their home is different, but they model off of us. So if I show them that this is what we're doing, then they will automatically fall in line. There's a reason that kids go to school and act completely okay, and then when they come home, they're completely all over the place.
Right.
They know how to do it. We forget that they know how to do it because they cry and they buck the system. But they go to school and they do it for 8 hours a day. So I promise you they will get through it. They can get there and they can do it. Just make sure that they do it and follow through with everything that you put in place, because sometimes we'll put things in place and then if we have a 4-year-old that lays their head on our knee or on our leg, then it's like okay, you don't have to do all the other stuff for the rest of the day.
Right
but we gotta fight through we gotta fight through it We have to fight through it, and we have to make sure that we are modeling for them what we need them to see, and they'll fall in line automatically because it's just what kids do. They're resilient.
Yeah. So we have somebody who said that their youngest sleep schedule is off, and he's 6. So just like we talked about our sleep patterns being off, the kids' sleep patterns
Mm-hmm.
too. My youngest is 10, and he definitely is very much so just kind of like, he thinks it's vacation. That's really what he thinks it is. This is just a vacation. We're just here.
That's it.
And I also think that because sometimes with the schools, some of the workload is a little bit different per child, per school, per
Yeah.
grade level. The kids aren't necessarily getting either the same amount of work that they would get if they were in school, or the I don't want to use the word difficulty, but like, you know what I'm trying to say.
Different levels.
Like they don't have to think it's hard. It's almost like they just giving them busy work, right? As opposed to actually doing something. They're assuming that somebody in here said they think it's summer vacation. Yes, they don't
Right.
realize it. And so I think for some of us, like I know for myself, I try not to stress myself out. And so I'll be like, this is what you gotta do what you need to do, and you know, because I don't want to sit, I don't want to argue with you all day long either. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
get this done. I try to structure it in a certain way. Like I do think that once you give them a certain period of time, um, they will do it, right? Like you just tell them, so
Mm-hmm.
youngest, this hour, in this hour, this is the work that you have to do. After that, I don't do what you want.
Right. Right.
But at least leave these things done. But I do agree that structure is good. But what do you do when your kids' sleep patterns are off and they just cannot go to sleep?
That's when you try to put things in the day that will make them tired. So you have them go outside in the backyard, or go outside in the front yard, and let them play. You go out there and play with them, like you do things that will
Wear them
help
out.
wear them out, and then you put them. You create a sleep routine. So you, at a certain time every night, you get them used to, okay, now we're going to go and take a shower. Now we're going to go and brush our teeth. We can read a book and truly let them die down for the day. You can't have them in front of devices and iPads and TVs at least an hour before. Like, stretch out the sleep. We all do it. We all do it. No judgment. No judgment whatsoever. We all do it. But when it comes to me and my sleep, we got to figure this out, because I need to be able to sleep, and you need to be able to sleep.
Yeah.
So at least for an hour before bedtime, like, just slow down the sleep routine process and let them take a shower, read to them, or y'all can read together if they're older, and y'all just sit next to each other and read. But really create an intentional sleep schedule, and that way, once they get in the bed, like, their bodies will learn to tell that, okay, now we're going to start transitioning into bed. But it needs to be a transition process. It shouldn't be, okay, you're on the iPad, now let's, take a shower in pajamas in bed, because it's so much activity that they're already going to be up and wired and energized. So you got to create structure around sleep time too, and create structure around waking up, and not have them sleep so late because they're home. Get them up early, the same time that they would probably go to school. Get them up, have them play, wear them out, have the sleep schedule on point, stretch it out for about 30, 45 minutes, and I promise you, they will lay down and go to sleep. And if they get back up because they don't want to go, then you got to lay them back down. You have to follow through. If they're crying, as long as they ain't hurt, let them cry. They'll fall asleep. But it's the not following through and going in and trying to talk them down and trying to make them sleep. Just follow through. They will do what they need to do because they're kids.
It's very challenging just kind of during this time, because this, it's almost like, is there a right answer, is there a wrong answer? Like you say, none of us have do this. Like, it's first time for me, but that you start to see, like, okay, I literally can't let you do this all day long, right? Like,
right.
It turns into, like, you think it's supposed to be like this every day, or and so we've had to put some constraints on some things. Like, my kids play Fortnite, and so it was like, okay, Monday through or Sunday night through Thursday night, you got to get off at 10 o'clock. And they would be like,
Mhm.
what? We normally get. And I'm like, get off at 10, but you need, and so
Mhm.
it's some of it is that they know it's different. They know they don't have to physically go somewhere. So then they're challenging you too, like, where am I going? And you be like,
Right.
right, you ain't going nowhere.
To bed if you don't stop asking me questions. This is where you're going.
So we have about 15 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions about just coping and dealing with anxiety through the quarantine, relationships during the quarantine? We talked a lot about marriages and parenting. I did have a question that somebody slid in my DMs earlier and asked about whether or not what if you recognize certain behaviors in your spouse that they are not willing to recognize, like depression or anxiety, but they're not calling a thing a thing. How do you deal with that? Because it's now affecting the other spouse, right? Like they're trying to have a
Right.
conversation, trying to communicate, but that the other spouse is like, no, you're tripping, basically.
Right.
So their question was kind of like, how do they deal with that when they want to try to support them the best way that they can, but they don't even think there's anything wrong or they don't see what's happening.
Got it. So I mean that's a difficult one because every relationship is different, and so in every relationship you have your own individualized culture of communication and how you communicate. So for some couples, it may be as simple as sitting them down and not mentioning the word depression because, all these words come with such a negative connotation, but just kind of, get curious. Even if you know what it is, just get curious and be like, hey, I've noticed that you've been acting this way. Things have been a little off, has something been different at work? Like it's been a little weird. So let's talk about it. And you
Yeah.
don't have to mention the sadness. You don't have to mention things that may make somebody feel like they are less than. Because I don't know if they're, a black person that's slid in your DMs, but I know that us as black people, if we feel like we can't handle ourselves or handle our own stuff, then it
Mm,
automatically makes us feel like we're less than. So
yeah.
anytime somebody may speak to a certain insecurity or if they may speak to a certain vulnerability, we immediately get defensive because it's like, no, I got this. I know I see what you see too, but we're not going to talk about it because that's
Yeah.
just what we do. So making it a situation and an environment where it's safe to talk and it's comfortable to talk, and you allow them to tell you how they feel versus us going in and saying, hey, you've been feeling this way, you've been
Yeah.
acting this way, it must be depression.
Right.
So now tell me about it. And they're going to be like, no, it's not depression. I'm not sad. That's not what I'm doing. But if you get curious with people and honestly, have an interest into what's going on in their lives, because it could be the pandemic, it could be, stress with work, it could be them not knowing how to manage a family all day, every day in the house, because that
Yeah.
can be a stressor. So you don't know. You may see the sadness and see certain things, but oftentimes it doesn't necessarily automatically mean it's depression. It could
Yeah.
be situational. It could be something else. So get curious and just ask the questions and not mention those taboo words because
Yeah.
we know it just doesn't end well. It does
Yeah.
not end well.
And so many more commercials lately now than I'd ever seen before. I'm like, you usually see them at certain times of the day. I'm like, these are on the Hallmark Channel too. Like, I was like, oh, okay. But, I'm like, because we're in a heightened
Mm-hmm.
situation, heightened state right now, I think that there are people that are like noticing it. And then you hear all the things, you see the commercial, you're like, oh, you know what? That's what you look like. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what's wrong with you or whatever have you. Um, but
Right. And even when some people hear that word, again, just like with therapy, they automatically think the worst. If they hear depression, they see a person like not being able to get out of bed,
yeah,
crying all the time. And if they can't identify with that particular word or that vision of what depression looks like, then they're going to immediately shut that down. But if you allow them to express their own feelings, then it may be an easier conversation to have. And you can venture into certain things. And they may even mention it once you bring it to their attention.
yeah. That's good. I definitely have noticed. I don't see nobody asking anything as of yet, but I definitely have noticed, even with my friends or my family and the people that I've talked to, that when I express what's going on with me, it sometimes also opens up the door for somebody to be like, "Yeah, I was feeling the same way," or whatever have you. And I think some of it is just the fear of like, I'm people still think that their emotions and what they're going through they're by themselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we're all going through a pandemic, we're all quarantined, but they feel like, I know for a period of time I had this like, and it probably was like a week where I was like, I wish I was normal. I wish I was like everybody else who didn't have any issues and didn't have anxiety and didn't have this. And, then I thought to myself, what if there's other people out here who feel the same way? Like, and
It
don't.
is a lot. And that's true. That's true. Because we don't, if we're not talking to each, we don't know what, other people may be struggling with or dealing with in
Yeah.
that particular moment. So it definitely helps to be able to talk about it and to have those conversations because it's important.
Well, thank you so much, Dominique. I really appreciate you joining us this evening on this Wellness Wednesday.
You are welcome.
Who are stationed in Florida. We have people from all over who listen. So, if how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you personally as a therapist or as a coach? How can they reach out to you?
They can go to my website is www.dominiquebattle.com. And they can either message me on there, and my email is on there. Email is best because I respond to that very quickly. My social media handles are Dominique Battle and then _ so you can find me there as well. I'm very approachable and open. So if you have any questions that you couldn't think of here and think of them later, feel free to send me an email and I'll respond and answer them to the best way I can.
Awesome. So we got a lot of yes, thank yous. Thanks, guys. This was good. I'm still learning how to make this a replay. So y'all might 75 trying to figure out how this is supposed to work. But I'm gonna get it. I can repost it so that
right.
This is I think these are the conversations that people are not having. And so it's important to have them because again, we're all living through this together. We don't know that there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. We're figuring it out on our own. And I would, for me, I want people to be better on the other side of this, or at least to be able to cope with whatever it is they're going through. You know what I'm saying? Because we need a whole nother day to talk about when outside actually opens up because
we do, because it's going to be chaos. It's going to be craziness.
Yeah.
And, with social media, you see all these memes about, you at home all day, you should be working on your business, you should be working on this. But I think people are forgetting that we're not just off on PTO.
Yeah.
Like, we are all dealing with a global trauma and we are experiencing this thing differently. So just sitting at home and being focused enough to be able to work on, important stuff or things that we would consider priority, it's just not a space that we can be in. And it's a shaming thing to make people feel like they always have to be doing something.
Yeah.
When all they just need to do is relax and take care of themselves right now and figure it out as they go.
Yeah, it definitely did. Right now, we just surviving. That's what we're doing. We're not worried about being productive. If you are, great. We're not knocking nobody who is. But it's shaming people to make them feel like if you're not, I saw a meme that said something to the effect of like, if you don't come out of this with a hustle or like, something. And I'm like, bruh, people just trying to get toilet paper. Like,
I just remember that it's Wednesday today because I thought it was Tuesday. Can I just focus on remembering the days of the week?
These days, like, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, welcome. All right, y'all. Y'all check the replay whenever I figure it out. Bye.
Bye.